Welcome back to Bodhi Tuition Services. In this video, we'll be diving into AQA English Language Paper 1, Question 2. This question focuses on analysing how writers use language to create effects, and it's all about understanding the techniques that shape meaning and text. Whether you're looking to boost your exam skills or refine your analytical approach, this video will guide you through the key strategies to tackle Question 2, Paper 1, with confidence. So grab your pen and paper and let's get started. Now, the key thing to know for this question is it's all about analysis. It is not about inference. Now, inference is actually assessed in Paper 2, Question 2, and that is when you say what it means or what you understand by it. So just make sure when you're answering this question, you are using stock phrases such as this makes the reader feel, or this builds such and such atmosphere, or this highlights how, or this creates a certain mood. It's about the effect, not what it means. Now, when the examiner assesses you, they are assessing you based on these 4 words. Limited, some, clear, and then it's perceptive or detailed. Perceptive is when you think outside the box, and detailed is when you say a lot. If you are after minimum of a grade 4, you still need to be aiming for the level 4. Because if you fall short of the level 4, you land into the level 3. The grade 4 currently, and it's 2025 at the moment, is 4 marks out of 8. But if you're aiming for that and you fall short, you're not going to get the grade 4. So think about all the time, what else can I say? What else can I say? The top tips I give my students for this is to ask yourself, so what? So every time you say something, ask yourself, so what? What else can I say? What else can I add to that? So let's have a look at the actual question. We are looking at the June 2021 paper, and we are looking at Ugu's impression of the city. You will be given a certain amount of lines in front of you. Here you're given 10 lines. In paper 1, they're always printed. As a side note, in paper 2, they're not. You have to find them yourself. When you read this, your job is to find the quotations that best show you as an analytical student. Because your examiner is only going to be thinking, is this limited, is it some, is it clear, is it perceptive, detailed? So find the quotes that highlight you the most. Ugu did not believe that anybody, not even his master, was going to live with 8 meat every day. Is there anything there that I could analyse? No. He did not disagree with his auntie though, because he was too choked with expectation. Now we do have this verb choked here. So as you're doing this, think to yourself, what could I say about it? Well, choked is incredibly aggressive. It's violent. It's deadly. So that would be quite a good phrase to use. Too choked with expectation. So it highlights the idea that he has this real anticipation, but also there's these undertones. This area could be deadly, it could be aggressive, or it could be violent towards him. Too busy imagining his new life away from the village. They have been walking for a while now since they got off the lorry at the motor park, and the afternoon sun burned the back of his neck. So again, you've got your second example here of aggression. So we've got this first word, choked, and we've got this second word, burned. But he did not mind. He was prepared to walk hours more, even in hotter sun. He had never seen anything like the streets that appeared after they went past the university gates. Streets so smooth and tarred that he itched to lay his cheek down on them. Now here, streets so smooth and tarred that he itched to lay his cheek down on them, that does describe his impression of the city. Would I talk about that? No. And the reason why I personally wouldn't is I wouldn't be able to get a perceptive or detailed analysis of it. The streets are smooth. I mean, it's a road. Roads are smooth. I know that, you can make jokes about potholes, but this isn't a time nor place. The fact they're smooth, it just shows that there was money there. It was tarred. Well, streets are tarred. He itched to lay his cheek down on them. I mean, what would I say about that? He was really keen to. Again, I've only got 15 minutes. So this is a 15 marker to show how good at analysis I am. So for me, personally, I wouldn't talk about that one. It wouldn't be showing me in the best light. He would never be able to describe to his sister, Annalika, how the bungalows here were painted the colour of the sky. Now, there is something I could say about that. Because in my head, I always think, right, religion and literature, they go hand in hand. If I start thinking about the sky, I start thinking about heaven, I think about God. When I think about God and heaven, I think about purity, the sublime, the divine. So I can do some good, perceptive, detailed analysis of sky. The same way I can do good, perceptive and detailed on choked. I'd couple that up with the idea of being burned. Here's some good heaven, God, purity, sublime, divine. I can talk a lot about that. So that enables the perceptive detailed. So that's side by side like polite, well-dressed men. Polite, well-dressed men, well, what's really good here is this is a simile. And I know it's simile because it uses the word like. So I'm getting some, subject terminology in there. Please note, though, your examiner, though, subject terms look great, they do, you're not actually assessed on your use of subject terminology. Your examiner makes your decision, is your analysis limited, sum, clear, perceptive, detailed, not is your subject terminology really advanced. So if you do struggle with subject terminology, don't worry, just use the phrase, and when you're talking about an individual word, call it a word. So polite, well-dressed men. Now I like that because well-dressed means they've covered themselves, which is a lot like painted. So things are being covered up, covered in a positive way to present this image of something being good, but doesn't mean underneath it's good. So I'm getting some really nice sort of allusion there to perhaps things aren't as good as it seems. And then when I've got the word men, that creates this idea of patriarchy. So the world isn't equal. How the hedges separating them were trimmed so flat that they looked like tables wrapped with leaves. So here they look like tables wrapped with leaves. Again, this idea of illusion. Things aren't quite as they seemed. So how do we write this up? So the first thing you need to do is not write an introduction. So if you're one of these people that's saying, the writer uses language here to describe, don't do it. As an examiner, we do not spend a lot of time marking your questions. That's the honest to God truth. You're probably given 20 or 30 seconds for this question. There is a requirement for us to mark all these questions in a set time, so you get kind of different limits. And we don't need to spend ages. We're highly skilled, we're highly practiced, and we're highly trained in doing this. So we scan. We're scanning for when you start doing your analysis. Quotations, if they're long, it just shows us you're not quite sure. If we think you're not quite sure, our brains are instantly going to the limited or some. So you want short, precise quotations showing us you are confident and you have a clear understanding of what you are doing. And then once you've got your clear understanding and we're looking at that level 3, we'll make the decisions about whether you're level 4, is it perceptive, is it detailed. So writing this up, you would say the phrase. Select the phrase that you feel would show you in the best light, where you could say the most things about. So I'm going to go painted the colour of the sky. The phrase painted the colour of the sky. Now this is quite a long quotation, and ideally you do not want to use a quotation longer than 4 words. So I always say to my class, no more than 4. You might be thinking to yourself, but there is more than 4. Well, actually, the, of, and the you wouldn't analyse. So really there's 1, 2, 3 words. So really, really make sure your quotations are as succinct, as short as possible. The phrase painted the colour of the sky. Now you want to be saying what the effect is. So you can use phrases like highlights, builds, echoes. Up here I've given you some makes the reader feel, builds a mood, creates an atmosphere. Builds a sense of beauty. That's the effect. But we want to constantly be pushing to that level 4 regardless of our target grade. So ask yourself, so what? Well, what does it matter if it builds a sense of beauty? So what? As though this area is sublime. The idea that the sky, heaven, is even touching and is part of this city. Ugu is in awe of what he is seeing. Now, I'm now going to analyse a word. I'm going to go for the word painted because that's this idea of it being false, it being covered up. I love using ly words, so adverbs, just to enhance my writing because you want to be showing your examiner that you are skilled in English. So showing in words like significantly, poignantly, notably will really show your examiner you are comfortable and skilled in this area. So significantly, there it's a past tense, it's a past participle word. So if you know that it's a past participle, call it a past participle. If you know it's a verb, call it verb. If you're not sure, call it word. So significantly, the word painted. Now I'm going to start talking about it being ominous because actually it's been painted. So heaven isn't part of this area, but it's been made to look heavenly. The word painted shows how man has chosen for this city to look as though it is part of the sky. God. And thus, it is ambiguous. Ambiguous means you're unsure as to whether this place is pure and divine, or whether evil is covered up to pretend to be holy. Now that's really nice time to then start looking at those aggressive words we saw earlier, choked and burned. So you're developing all the time. What else can I say? Fundamentally, Ugu is described upon his approach to be burned and choked. Now, I want to be talking about the effect of the author's methods all the time. Think about what's the effect of the author's methods. Well, the author chose to use these words to present something that's positive, and yet actually the true meaning of these words is incredibly negative. So Ugu is described upon his approach to be burned and choked. The author's use is positive to show and build up Ugu's anticipation and excitement. And yet, the reader, because remember it's about the effect, what's it doing to the reader, what's it doing to the mood, what's it doing to the atmosphere, and yet the reader begins to suspect that things are not truly divine, as both of these words are deadly and aggressive. As though a monster lurks behind the false facade. Facade is a cover. It's what you have on the outside of your house. So your examiner, when they're marking this, again, only marks for analysis, and I'm going to highlight for you analysis. So the phrase paint the colour of the sky builds a sense of beauty, as though the area is sublime. The idea that the sky heaven is even touching and is part of the city. Uguru is in awe of what he is seeing. Significantly, the word painted shows how man has chosen for the city to look as though it's part of the sky, God, and thus it is ambiguous as to whether this place is pure and divine, whether evil is covered up to pretend to be holy. Fundamentally, Uguru is described upon his approach to be burned and choked. The author's use is positive, to show and build up Uguru's anticipation and excitement, and yet the reader begins to suspect that things are not truly divine, as both of these words are deadly and aggressive, as though a monster lurks behind the false facade. Now, at the end of everything you write, ask yourself those two words. So what? What else can I say at this point? Is there anything else I can say? So what's his impression of the city? And so Uguru's impression may be an illusion. Okay, so that is my final little bit of inference on that section. I've only used at this point, say 6 minutes, so I would have time to analyse another quotation. So what would I go for next? This idea of like polite, well-dressed men. So let's have a go at that. Now, uses the word like, so in this context we know that it's a simile. So the simile, I don't need to use the word like in my quotation because I've already said it's a simile. The simile, polite, well-dressed men. Highlights the city as wealthy and suggests a sense of class and hierarchy. Moreover, remember, zoom in on those words. Moreover, the word men builds a sense. Patriarchy. That the male is dominant. And so, in this city, not everyone is equal. So what? What's the effect? And his impression is of one of not belonging, poor, and also social order, the expectation of how you should be. What else can I say? Ask yourself, so what? Well, the word well-dressed, that compound there, well-dressed. Again, things being covered up. Well, that's exactly the same as the term painted. Moreover, so if you can, analyse more than one word in that quotation. Because going back to what the examiner's looking for, limited sum, clear, perceptive, detailed. If you're analysing more than one word in the quotation, it's highly likely you're going to be detailed and thus level 4. Moreover, the compound, so just like in science, if you have two elements together, it creates a compound, same in English. So if you see it with a hyphen, you've created a compound. But if you don't know that, just call it a word. The compound, well dressed, builds an air of grandeur. And pride. And yet, again, like painted, shows that things are covered up and are not necessarily how they seem. So go back to the question, what's his impression of his city? And thus, the impression of the city through Uguru's eyes is one of delight. But he is a boy, and so is innocent. And his innocence cannot see the duality within. Hidden dangers and false exteriors. Once you've spent 15 minutes, you move on. Or once you've filled up the entire page, if it's only 10 minutes, you move on. Ask yourself all the time, is there anything else I could say? Ask yourself, so what, so what, so what? So in this section, where's my analysis? The similarly polite, well-dressed men highlight city as wealthy and suggest a sense of class and hierarchy. Moreover, the word build builds a sense of patriarchy that is male dominant, and so in this city not everyone is equal. And this impression is one of not belonging, poor, and also social order. Moreover, the compound well-dressed builds an air of grandeur and pride, and yet again, like painted, shows that things are covered up and not necessarily how they seem. And thus, the impression of the city through Uguru's eyes is one of delight in its innocence, cannot see the duality within, hidden dangers and false exteriors. Now, as your examiner marks, they will decide, is it level 1, 2, 3, 4? And if you get level 4 at any point, you are awarded level 4. So when you look at the highlighted, builds a sense of beauty, well, that is level 2, some understanding. Areas sublime, that's heightened because I've built it up a bit. So I've got clear, it's beauty, it's sublime. Even touching is part of the city. Aura has chosen for the city to look as though it's part of the sky. So that's your level 3. Clear understanding, and thus it is ambiguous as to whether this place is pure and divine, or whether evil is covered up to pretend to be holy. Now here, because I'm challenging the ideas, I'm being perceptive, I've hit level 4. Even if the rest of what I wrote was absolutely dire, because you've achieved the level 4, you stay at level 4. You would be awarded the lower level 4, but you would be awarded level 4. Currently in 2025, as it stands, lower level 4 would get you that grade 9. So carry on again, positive to show and build up Uguru's anticipation and excitement, and yet the reader begins to suspect that things are not truly divine. Level 4, as both of these words are deadly and aggressive, as though a monster lurks behind the false facade, and so Uguru's impression may be an illusion. It highlights city as wealthy and suggests a sense of class and hierarchy, so that there's some understanding. I'm just saying what's going on, and I'm doing that through the word suggest. But at this stage, I need the inference to build my ideas. But if I just kept using this word suggest throughout, I would stay level 2. It builds a sense of patriarchy and the male is dominant. This city, not everyone is equal. So the fact I've gone on to say that not everyone is equal is my high level 3. And this impression is one of belonging, poor, and also social order. An air of grandeur and pride shows that things are covered up and may not necessarily be as they seem. So that's level 4. I've been perceptive, I've been thoughtful. One of delight and his innocence cannot see the duality within, the hidden dangers and false exteriors. So again, that would be a level 4. So this, I'd be awarded 8 out of 8. Now, key learnings for this, your spelling does not matter. So if at a point you don't know how to spell a word, you're overthinking it. I'm sure there's times here I spelt things wrong. It doesn't matter for question 2. Question 2 is all about the analysis. You want to make sure your quotations are no more than 4 words, but we do allow little words such as of and the not to count in that word count. You want to make sure that you're not using suggests, unless you're doing it as I've done it here, just to tell you what's going on. If you are doing this throughout, you are going to achieve no higher than a level 2. So think about using phrases such as builds, highlights, makes the reader feel, creates a mood, creates an atmosphere. And that's it. That's our question 2.